Oversight Program Manager in the IAB, and I'm here today because both the 6LO and ROLL working groups received liaison statements from ITUT Study Group 15, and those liaison statements have a requested response date of this coming Friday. We just received the liaisons last Friday. We have a requested response date of this coming Friday. Now, we discussed these actually apply more to 6LO than to ROLL, because it has to do with the 6LO PAN registry in IANA for dispatch header bytes and for the escape dispatch byte that then allows for a second command byte after that. And what's happened is an ITUT specification has been published. Actually, two specifications have been published, G.9903 and G.9905. And those specifications use the existing dispatch header bytes as they're defined in the IANA registry, and they use the escape byte with some additional following bytes also as defined in the registry. Now, what IANA is asking, or what ITUT is asking for, is confirmation that we will not make any changes to the definition of those dispatch bytes that would affect the G.9903 and G.9905 specs. We, on the other hand, feel as though we want to collaborate with ITUT to create the registry for the escape bytes that ITUT has defined in those specifications, but has not defined a registry for. And in fact, the ITUT has written down that they recognize that registry has to be created. They just haven't created it yet. So Scott Mansfield is going to give us some more details. Scott is our liaison manager for ITUT. He's going to give us some more details, and then I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to come back up and wrap up with some conclusions and something for the working group to take a home on.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, I have all the liaison in the slides. I mean, yeah, the one, the slide is the first one in ROLL.
A response.
I have this.
Well, yes, it's the text of that statement that I emailed around today.
I didn't see the email.
I'll email it to you.
I didn't have it. Oh, yes, please.
Right. Yeah, we were just we've written a draft of a response, and we wanted to show you that. So
Okay.
to give you a preview of what the response will say, just go to that last slide.
Okay.
We're just, I think Ralph has already covered this, so I don't really have a lot to add. And so what we're looking for is we have a request from the ITUT to provide a response back to their liaison. So we've created a liaison, and we don't want to necessarily write two different liaisons, because the liaison from the ITU was addressed to both 6LO and to ROLL. So I think a joint response would be the way to go, so we don't have conflicting information going back. And so I think the thing that we can do once we get the text up, we're at the point now where we can take comments on. Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Just to sort of open and also
Here? Yeah. No. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, then it's okay. While we're doing that, let's go back a little bit. The IETF has a liaison tool. If you go to the main IETF.org page, there on the left-hand side of the IETF page, down there's a liaison place, right? And there's a liaison managers and liaisons. If you click on liaisons, you will go to a page that shows all of the liaisons that we get. And for this particular liaison that we received from the ITUT, we had, it was number 1414 was to 6LO and 1415 was to ROLL. So I go to the next slide. Sorry. Question? And they were identical.
So Thomas, then just... Okay. 14, 15, 14, 14, same ones.
Well, they are, the text is identical except for who they went to.
Perfect.
Yeah, right. The content was identical.
Okay.
Okay, and so the red bits are what's kind of important here. So we've got the ITUT saying what their role is, and the recommendations that they've created that are using the IETF protocols and information. And then so they have and it points out what they're normatively referencing. So the 6-low pan and the header compression in 6282. And then what they're doing is they're being good citizens here in that they're actually watching the IETF and utilizing the IETF process to watch what's going on. And they noticed and were concerned that there was discussion about doing some deprecation or removing or changing some of the information about how the escape and mesh dispatch headers were used. And so they created a liaison. So if you go to the next, they created this liaison to point out how they're using it, and they're pointing out how they used the documents as they were published by the IETF and creating and referencing them the way they're supposed to, and pointed out that it would be damaging to their implementations and to customer implementations if this occurred. So if you go to the next slide, I think it points out it's somewhere in the real liaison. Go next slide. Here, no, that one. And so this is their rationale for requesting that we don't change what they've already done. And that is Japan and France are deploying smart meters, and they're looking at and they're using this equipment and using these specifications already. So you go to the next slide. So the idea here is just, well, that's just more of the liaison. So go on to the next slide. So what we talked about in the 6-low meeting, where we talked about this for a while, is we want to avoid the deprecation of the ESC and mesh dispatch headers, and we want to collaborate with the ITU wherever we can have an opportunity to embrace and collaborate with the ITU and thank them for actually using the IETF process and understanding our process. We should foster that relationship. And this is an example of where we can help by writing a internet draft that provides the guidance to IANA on creating a registry, because the last thing I think the IETF would want is the ITUT creating a registry that they maintain themselves. So that seems bad to me. So if you go to the next slide, so what we talked about in 6-low is creating a very simple liaison. And the simple liaison says, thanks, we won't change it, and we want to collaborate with you on the IANA registry. And thanks, and you know where our next meeting is. So that's the we have the text, but I'll take questions on this before we go to that.
Pascal Hubert Cisco. I agree with the text, but when you said the last thing I want is them to create a registry, I would put a bebel on that. The escape byte was really not defined, and now we kind of allow for, I would say, another party to put some value in there. Mm-hmm. And I think it's an option on the table to recognize that this exists, and then to say, okay, this byte, because now they use it, right? So certain value could be a place where we actually invite other groups, including ITU and maybe others, to come in, and we could dedicate that octet to others, in which case they would maintain a portion of that in their own registries, and we would have to come ANA every time. So it's an alteration to what you just said.
Exactly. No, you're right. That's a and might have said it a little strongly, but at least it got you to the microphone, and we could say yes. I mean, that's a good point, and that would be something that we would talk about in the draft, about what ranges we would do for this group in the IANA registry. So yeah, that's great. Any other? So let's just put up if you can, put up the text. I did it in VI because you gotta stay true to the core, right? So I see blue. I see blue screen.
This time for sure.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay, so I have this in a format that's easy for the liaison secretariat to put it into the liaison tool.
Yep.
So the formatting looks a little odd, but oh, the spinny circle of happiness doesn't only happen on the PC, does it? There we go.
Okay,
So
good.
common things here. So what we're saying is that this is coming from the 6-low chair and the roll. Matter of fact, it looks like I've changed it. I need to fix this a little bit.
No.
No, because it's there's 6-low and roll
I see.
people, and then the in the carbon there is the area directors that are responsible for 6-low and roll. And it's going to, now this is something that it's part of an ITU thing. It actually goes to the TSB, which is their secretariat for the ITUT sector. So that's just a common way of doing that. And then the purpose of this is in response, and the text is here. So I don't know if you want to read it, or if you want to send it to the mailing list, or...
So I thought what we do is the following. The 6-low working group reviewed this content yesterday, and it's currently on the 6-low mailing list for anyone who wasn't at the meeting yesterday to review and comment before we send the response off to ITUT on Friday. We thought we would come to Roll and make the same text available to you. And if you want to use this same text, that would be great. We can put the Roll chairs on a second copy of this, send it out at the same time.
Right.
So my suggested process would be to take a hum on this text here and any other commentary that there might be. And then if it's fine here in the room, post it to your mailing lists for comment until Thursday close of business. And then Scott will send it off on Friday.
Right.
Okay? Any discussion of that plan? And I'm sorry that we didn't have these in the slides. Can anyone who is interested in reading this actually read it? Or actually not read it? Do you need me to read it off to you or anything, or are you happy with it? Okay, I'll read it off. We have people on the phone. Okay. So the first paragraph. We made this very simple and straightforward. First paragraph. The IETF will not change the definitions of the code points specified in RFC 4944, RFC 6282, as published in IANA Registry IPv6 Low Power Personal Area Network Parameters, and then there's the URL, in such a way as to affect the ITUT G.9903 and G.9905 specifications. Okay? Second paragraph. The IETF 6-low working group offers to collaborate with ITUT Study Group 15 in establishing a new registry for the code points following the escape dispatch code. This new registry will be populated at the time of its establishment with the command ID values as defined in G.9903 and G.9905. And we have a third paragraph, final paragraph. We welcome experts also active in SG15 to participate in our next meeting, the IETF 6-low and roll working groups meeting in November in Yokohama. Okay, discussion.
I agree with this text. I think it's fine.
Okay, thanks.
Thomas Otena.
Dominic Bartel. What about command ID values already defined, such that you don't commit for any future definition?
Already defined.
Sure.
Good point. Yeah.
We have the technology right here. There.
Alex Petrescu. So there are 3 paragraphs on the as displayed.
Yeah.
I agree with the first paragraph. I find it neutral enough to at least continue working as before, 9903 and 9905. But in the second paragraph, there is this second phrase which says this new registry will be populated at the time of its establishment. What is this new registry? Is it the IANA?
Yeah, the registry, to establish a new registry maintained by IANA.
Right. Maintained by IANA.
Yeah, thanks. That's what I get for trying to hold this and type with one hand. There we go. Okay, great.
Right.
Okay.
And then so this
So-
is that new.
And this new registry then is the registry maintained by
by
IANA.
IANA. So this means that IANA maintains a new registry and ITU no.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Right.
Okay.
That's the idea.
That's the idea. And following this, my question is, why is IANA maintaining a registry below the IP layer?
IANA already maintains a registry for the other 6 low-pan code points. The dispatch code points that have been defined, IANA already manages the registry for the IPHC code points that have already been defined. This registry would be in parallel with those existing registries. I might call it a sub-registry off of the overall IANA registry. We'll work out that detail. But it is an adjunct to registries that already exist in IANA.
And in that already maintained registry, why there is no entry for an IPv6 base header?
Because the IPHC carries the IPv6 base header.
Why there are entries for IPv6 destination options header, hop by hop header, and so on, but not for IPv6?
Yes.
base?
The IPv6, you can view a combination of the IPHC code points as carrying all of the information in the IPv6 base header, just in a different encoding format. You can reconstruct an entire IPv6 base header from the values contained in the IPHC headers.
But can I also transport a base header uncompressed?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Jonathan,
Yes.
there is a dispatch code for carrying an IPv6 header as defined in 2460.
Your name. Sorry. Okay.
Thomas Otene, small editorial. I agree with the changes. Should we say IETF 6 low and roll, or will you do one for 6 low and one for roll, or just 6 low?
Now we are doing the how to have the
Depends on if Roll wants to help collaborate.
Okay.
I think just
Doesn't
6
matter.
low.
It doesn't matter.
Unless you want to do the collaboration, then that's fine. I'll put roll in. I'm happy to do that. As long as I don't need any trips to Geneva, I'll be fine.
No, I'll take care of that.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, we'll take a hum at this point for people in the room. The first hum question will be, please hum if you support sending this liaison statement as it's written in response to the liaison statement received by the Roll Working Group from ITUT SG15. Please hum now. Okay, thank you. If you do not support sending this, if you do not want this version sent to ITUT, please hum now. Excellent, thank you. Thank you.
All right, I
And thank you.
appreciate the
Yeah, thank you. Thank
work
you for
of
the support.
working group and the support. Right, appreciate it.
For the final note, the members present in the room, let's.
Yeah, you have the cable.
I'm not sure what you're asking for about the statement. What is the statement that we agreed to? Oh, the conclusion about the hum is there is support in the room. There's consensus, unanimous support in the room for sending this liaison statement to ITUT on Friday, and the chairs will post this to the mailing list for additional review and comment because our work's done on the mailing list. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Reverend Scott.
That's for you.
Okay. So, continue with this. Okay, now come the draft that we are working with Michael. The idea was to set the use cases, want to use RPC 6553, 6554, and IP encapsulation. This was the result of the role interim meeting at the beginning of the year, and we need your help and comments on that. Okay, going faster. We have some scenarios that we want to analyze deeply. For each one, we want to set the cases for storing and non-storing mode. And for each case, we would like to have the header. How will be the header? We will use the 6553, 6554, and IPv6 encapsulation. So the scenarios that we set as a starting point was left to root, from left to internet, from live to live, from internet to live, from root to live. So we like set a specific scenarios, and we will need advice, help if there is additional scenarios to take in consideration. For each of one scenarios, we will need. We always need 6553, 6554, and APIP. So Thomas is going to help us as new co-author, and if there is someone else that want to help us, please let us know and comment in the mailing list.
So Thomas Otele,
Yes.
from Miteco, if you could speak a little bit less. And so now from myself.
Okay.
Yes, so I a little bit of context in this. So thank you very much for writing it. We were scratching our head just a little bit when we tried to do plug tests with IP and IP encapsulation. We had this interim meeting, and we thought it might be useful to have a draft that just clearly states what is needed. And so thank you very much for writing it. I think it's super useful. And I sent out a long review. I haven't seen any feedback on that review. I hope it doesn't mean that it was only contained nonsense. But I'm happy to help work on this later.
Yeah,
Thank you.
The most interesting part will be, like I said, the headers for each case when it's installed on the story mode. So we have work to do. So please comment in the mailing list. Thank you. So now, Pascal, please. It's going to present the new and another one, just a minute. We have a new draft that is called API-based clustering routing protocol that was not announced in the mailing list, just submit to the working group. So please, if you know something, have some information, we try to contact the authors, but without success. And so if you have some information on that, please let us know about this new draft that we have. Thank you.
Okay, so this discussion will be mostly an animation. So as you know, REPL is a pretty rich routing protocol already. We have a storing and a non-storing mode, which are proactive routing. We also have an experimental RFC that proposes a reactive routing, which is kind of similar in essence to AODV, but using REPL mechanism. And now we are kind of proposing something which is a missing link between the storing mode and the non-storing mode within REPL, so still part of the proactive family, with application in a non-storing network that would have specific portions that would benefit from storing. What's in scope in this discussion is the signaling, using pretty much REPL signaling to install routes inside the network. What is not in scope is how you decide and compute which routes would be installed. The key functionality addresses a point that was made again today at 6-ish, which is that it's pretty difficult to say, oh, I want to support storing mode in a device without knowing exactly how many routes you're going to need. So that was always the problem with storing mode. Do I have enough memory in my device for a particular application, particular use case? And people always end up doing non-storing because that's the only way you can be sure that you have enough space in your device. The problem with that being that if you have many hubs in the network, then you will have a heavy cost in terms of source routing and stretch in your path. So this draft basically proposes a way to patch particular areas in your network or particular path in your network with the a priori knowledge of the capability of the node so that you don't push more state in a given node than that particular node can support. And it builds on the fact that today in a non-storing network, the root has a perfect knowledge of the whole DODAG because you give all the parent-child information to the root using DAO, non-storing DAO, so the root can reconstruct that information. It could be possible that another device has more information. For instance, if we start doing deterministic networking, which is part of the scope of 6-dish, then it might be that an external PCE has even more information about the topology, the neighborhood, the radio quality, etc., and could build even better path. So what we are really doing with this simple draft is actually taking Ripple in the SDN world, in the PCE/SDN world. But we are not creating deterministic path, we are just installing routes. That's narrow scope. And so I will just basically go through some slides which tell you the way the proposed solution works. Please? Yes. So we have this topology in the draft, so I just reproduced it with nicer picture here. Next. So the only new thing in this proposal is what we call a projected DAO. It's the capability for the root to actually send a DAO pretty much the other way as the non-storing DAO. So instead of being a node which tells the root, oh, I have this parent, this child relationship, here it's going to be the root sending to the egress of a segment a sequence of nodes that form a particular segment. And what the nodes will do, and we'll see that in the animation, they will set up a route along that segment for the particular destination that is indicated in the target. Next slide, please. So we saw that, I don't have a pointer, but we saw that the message arrived to node 46, and it's about 56. So the target of the message is node 56. The idea is to build a segment of route, install some routing states along a particular segment to reach 56. And the assumption is that the egress has a route to 56. In this case, the route is a connected route because it's directly connected to 56. Thank you, very useful. So the egress of the path will be this, the ingress of the path will be this.
Could you please stay in the real?
And the message has been sent to 46 about 56, which is the target. Okay? And so from there, what 46 does is send a classical storing mode DAO to 35. So remember, we are in a non-storing topology. The root has all the information about the topology, at least the DODAG that was built out of that topology. The root sends a message to 46 about 56 saying, hey, I want to establish a segment. And 46 forwards along the segment back to 35. Here is a DAO. So next slide, please. As a result of that, 35 has a route installed in its routing information base, in its RIB, about 56 via 46. That's the only storing mode route in this whole network at this point. Okay? And when things are complete, 35, the ingress of the segment acknowledges to the DAG route that this particular segment was installed in the network. Next slide, please. So here is the state as it exists now. This was the pre-existing route in 56, and we'll keep it for the rest of the discussion. And the path, the hub was, the RIB was installed in 35, about 56 via 46. Next slide, please. The result of that is that if there is a packet from 55, which really needs to reach 56, in storing mode, we would have had to go all the way to the root and back, which is a very long path stretch. In this particular case, now that 35 has a route to 56 via 46, it will know how to route it directly. Well, directly is a big word, but at least the stretch is much reduced. Then again, in scope is the signaling to do that. Out of scope is what causes the route to make the decision to do this particular improvement. All I can say is that the route before this improvement saw the traffic from 55 to 56 because everything goes through the route in non-storing mode. Okay, next slide, please. Now, if we look at the packet that the route would send to 56, now it's passed into a loose source route mode because you have the explicit source routing in yellow, but from 35, the hub via 46 now can be elided because the route knows that 35 has a state to go directly to 56. So the packet as emitted by the route has a destination to 13, which is the first hop in the source route. And then it has the explicit hops, the segments, if you like, 24, 35, and directly 56. Right. So this is how we can, if we have a very long line of sensors, for instance, in a street line of parking or street lights, etc., AMI, AMR have currently this long lines of sensors. This is one way to actually compress that information for particular cases. Next slide, please. So what if now we want to complete that route? And here is an example of what can be done once the first step has been done. Here is a second step. The second step would be to say, oh, now I want to install more hops to reach to 56. So this new DAO message goes to 35 being the egress. 35 already has a route to 56. That's the one we just installed, so the rule is obeyed. And now the explicit path will say via maybe 24, 13, please. And so the DAO is sent from 35 to 24, 24 to 13. That's the explicit path in the DAO. And 13 being the egress. Next slide, please. Will confirm to the root that this new state was established. Next slide, please. So at the end of the day now, after the first message, we got this. After the second message, we got that. So now we've got a route to 56 all the way through. So you see that you can actually install segment after segment after segment just to get some particular routes at the particular place, knowing that the route is expected through some exchanges here to have the capabilities of the devices so as to install state within the capabilities of the devices. Next slide, please. After we have installed this state, now we can have an equivalent of non-storing, of storing mode path for this particular destination, whereas all the rest of my network is still non-storing. Next slide. Michael just discussed on the mailing list an alternate, so I'm just, for those who read that list and wonder what Michael was asking, here is what could have happened instead of my second flow. In this variation of the second flow, the message is not sent to 35, it's sent to 24. So we are talking about a segment which ends at 24. Okay? And next slide, please. So the DAO is sent from 24 to 13. Next slide. And the acknowledgement back to the root. So it's not the same state that was installed. There is a difference. The difference being that there is no state in 30. Well, we are 35. We basically have to 24 has to route through 35. And 35, well, let's see on the next slide. That's exactly what's going to happen. So basically, the routes that are installed this time for 56 are just here. That was the first message. But the second message has just installed a route to 35 in those two nodes. Next slide. The result is that the packet that you need to build using Michael's use case is a packet that has one hop to 35, that's the destination in the packet, and the routing header which says 35 to 56. But we have installed two different segments which are not connected because they don't go to the same destination. And so you still need one hop of routing header, which is actually done in 35. So that's good if you have a lot of traffic going to 35 because you can actually converge a lot of things to 35. And then 35 has to route down to the various destinations. So that allows you to create a hub, if you like. So you have a single state for everything going via 35, then 35 gets the packet, and for other things which could be 55 and 56, it's a second hop in the routing header. So you see, you can really play with what you put in the network and what you place in the packet. You have all sorts of possible variations. Next slide. And this slide is about basically the discussion which have happened on the mailing list. So first discussion was about the terminology. In the 6550 ROS I think 54, the term segment is used for every strict source routing hop in the routing header. So there was the question whether using the term segment for a loose number of hops was actually appropriate. And we discussed calling this a projected route, because it's not injected, it's reprojected where you want it to be. So if you have any idea about this wording, please come to the mic. So since it's not the usual DAO, we proposed also the name of projected DAO. Same thing, if you have any comment on that name or any idea of how to name this thing. Second discussion was about the mode of operation. The draft proposes to define a new mode of operation. And people, Michael, Margarita, came in and said, oh, maybe it's costly to just use a mop for that. Why don't we use the non-storing mop, because that's basically a non-storing topology, and then expose through options the capability of the devices to the root. So the root will know which devices are effectively capable of that, which means that when the node in the network sends a non-storing DAO according to this new draft, it would put its capabilities, like the memory, how many routes it can install, etc., and just the fact that it supports this thing. And the root would just decide which nodes can do it, which nodes cannot, how many routes can be installed through a given node, and would do the optimization accordingly. Then again, if you have any comment on that, or please go to the mailing list. Third comment was that the text could be clearer about the DAO direction, but here it was not the text, it was me talking. So I'm sure you've seen that the new DAO goes to the egress of the new route, and it goes all the way up to the ingress. So that's a very classical way of doing DAO in REPL, always from the bottom to the top. So it's pretty much reusing what we already have in the code. I did not write it in a draft, but this allows routes which would not necessarily be following the DODAG. If the root has more capabilities or a PC behind the root has more capabilities to know a more direct path, it can also be installed by the exact same mean because the path is explicit and hop by hop. And finally, there was this question about what's the message that completes the flow from the ingress. So at the end, when all the routes has been populated, there is this message that goes back to the root and say, okay, or not okay, by the way. And initially we thought, okay, since it's a DAO going down, it could be a DAO hack going up. And there is an alternate which could be, oh, we could use a non-storing mode DAO, which is already going up, to actually say this path is installed. So remember, the end of the flow, this packet going to the root, we could use a non-storing DAO with the explicit path in it, and that would confirm to the root that this particular path was set up. And then again, asking to the room if you can come to the mic if you have an idea whether DAO hack or non-storing DAO would be a better response to complete the flow. And that's basically it, ready for questions and discussion. Welcome on the mailing list. Do you think it's a useful mechanism? Do you see application of it? Anything? Welcome. Did I speak English? Maybe I spoke French. Well, let me try again in French. Can you go back, please, to slide 1? There are French people in the room. It's a joke. Thank you, Inès. So, any question? Otherwise, I just go.
Thank you, Pascal. Do you think that this document is related with the previous one? Because we are setting for mode of operation, storing and storing mode. I don't know if we define a new mode of operation. We should consider that or no?
I mean, what's your advice here? I mean, the advice on the mailing list was don't use a new mop, use non-storing mop, and just provide capability from the nodes so that the root will get this information. Is that what you have in mind as well?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, sounds good.
You prefer no new map. That's what I hear.
Well, we have like a defined already in the 6550 the registry for mode of operation, so if we can use that ones to adapt, will be fine.
Yes, we have a registry,
Yeah.
but it's only three bits. So the question is, it's not that much space that you can play with.
Michael Richardson over Jabber. So we technically are not chartered to deal with this yet. So the question is really first, is this work that the working group should consider doing?
So, Ines, is it something you want to add about?
Well, I would like to see the comments on the mailing list and more
Okay.
to this new work and after design.
All set.
And if you see a relation with the previous one, I mean, if we can add this case as well.
Previous one. Which previous one? The previous draft?
Yes, like if we can add
Well, this draft is really helpful for people who implement to know when they encapsulate, what they don't encapsulate.
Yeah.
My draft is a new mechanism in the protocol. I don't think they fit in the same place. If that's it's really a new mode. Well, not mode of operation because we want to live maybe in this other one, but it's really a new operation in REPL, right? So it's really a different document if that's your question.
Okay. Okay.
Really different. I mean.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Pascal.
I agree with Pascal that the previous what you call the previous draft. Let's leave it like this.
Okay, we're going to just set this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Pascal. Comments? Okay. So we are done. If we don't have comments, questions. So thank you very much. Please comment the current draft. Thank you.
Thank you, Ines.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Many thanks to Michael and Diego and Dominique Savita for helping me a lot with the Java and minutes. Thank you very much. ¿Qué? Hay que tocar la estrellita. No sabía. Sure.